Dog parathyroid surgery can be daunting, and I know this because I've just recently been through it with my own dog, Asha. I'd like to share my experience and also some thoughts on dealing with expensive and sometimes unexpected surgeries. Sometimes things come up all at once, and that's what's happened with my dog Skeen and my dog Asha. I found out during the same week that both needed very expensive surgeries. Asha was diagnosed with a probable parathyroid tumor, and Skeen was diagnosed with grade 4 luxating patella. But this video is about Asha's parathyroid surgery. I met with the surgeon last Monday. It's Sunday today, so that's been pretty much a week. And she basically addressed all of my questions about blood work and about the surgery itself. I was really reassured by all of her explanations that Asha was in good hands. She called me right before the surgery just to let me know they were about to proceed, and she called me immediately after the surgery to let me know what had happened. And I really appreciated that good, clear communication. She basically explained that there are 4 parathyroid glands, and when an enlarged parathyroid is overproducing calcium, basically the other parathyroid glands will just sit back and rest while that one parathyroid does all the work. So if you can kind of think of it as 4 people doing a job and one person's doing pretty much everything and everybody else is just sitting back and resting, and all of a sudden that parathyroid tumor is removed, and so everybody's just got to kind of wake up and realize, oh, there's a job that needs doing. The tricky part of this surgery is the after surgery part where the other parathyroid glands are realizing they have a job to do. And in some cases, it can take a little while for them to wake up. Asha had had an ultrasound that showed an enlarged parathyroid gland. So the plan was to remove that parathyroid gland. And Asha also had a bladder stone, which they intended to remove at the same time. The surgeon told me that they would do an ultrasound just to confirm that that bladder stone was still there. On the positive side, the ultrasound showed that that bladder stone was no longer there. So that surgery was no longer necessary, and I was really glad that there'd be one less incision for Asha to have to deal with. In surgery, they did find, though, that Asha had 2 enlarged parathyroid glands, one on the left and one on the right. Both of them have been sent away for testing. Asha stayed overnight and her calcium was carefully monitored. Apparently, during the first night or 2, it can be extremely critical to monitor the calcium because calcium dropping too low can affect the organs negatively. And it's just really important to be able to watch that calcium because they can apparently inject calcium if it does drop too low. So it's important that the dog is in the clinic during that critical phase. The second morning I went to visit Asha.
My sweetheart. There you go. Oh, my girlie.
Told you you'd like this way better.
Yeah. Aww.
They felt that her calcium was still too low for her to be going home, and they wanted to continue monitoring her. And although I had wanted to take her back to my mom's house overnight and maybe return her the next day, they felt that it was still, her calcium had dropped somewhat and that it was still important to continue monitoring that second night.
That's a lot for you. That's a lot for you. What a good girl. Come here, hon. Come here, Asha. Come here, Asha. Yeah, you're a good girl.
She also apparently had some pyodermatitis in the incision area, I guess a tiny bit of an infection, so they wanted to keep a close eye on that. That's cleared up completely. Day 3 was the stressful day because wires got crossed. Day 3 was the stressful day for me because I basically thought I'd be taking Asha home, and in the morning I didn't hear from the vet. She'd apparently left a long and detailed message on my landline, but I didn't have access to my landline and I had my cell phone. So I kept calling and getting a message machine and not hearing back. It was a hot day. I couldn't bring my dogs out to the clinic with me and leave them there. So it was a little bit of a kerfuffle, especially not knowing what was going on with Asha and thinking I was going to be taking her home. Finally, in the afternoon, when I was able to talk to someone, I was told that actually her calcium had dropped somewhat and they were concerned and wanted to keep her in the clinic longer. I was starting to feel a lot of stress about that because, first of all, Asha is a very, very shy and nervous dog. When I first got Asha, she would have stress-induced seizures. Having her in the clinic that long was really starting to weigh on me. And I have to admit that not knowing how the bill was racking up, that's another pressure and another burden. And so they were kind enough to tally up the figures for me and figure out where I was at so that I could make some decisions about where to go from there. So we came up with a compromise, and Asha spent another day at the clinic and then came home to my mom's house where I was staying, which was really, honestly, so much more relaxing for her because it's a familiar environment and she could feel comfortable. I felt a lot better about having her there with me, and then we would do a recheck the next morning. Hey, Miss Asha, that's my girl right there. So she's obviously home now. Other than it being a kind of stressful day, well, quite a stressful day on the Wednesday, I do believe the clinic made a good decision about wanting to keep her on the Wednesday because her levels had dropped somewhat, and if they had continued dropping, it would obviously be a concern. The Thursday morning, we rechecked the calcium levels, and although they weren't still quite in the normal range, they at least were not dipping lower. So the plan is that I continue giving her calcitrol, I believe it's called. It's a liquid calcium medication. And I also 3 times a day give her a calcium supplement. I was told by one of the staff that some dogs can end up actually staying up to 5 days. And that would have really been a big financial strain for me. And I think for some people, it could really affect the decision to actually go through with the surgery. So I feel like you do have to weigh budgets. I mean, we absolutely adore and love our pets, but I couldn't imagine having Asha away in a clinic for 5 days, especially being quite alert and bright and being really aware of what was going on there. It would be so different if she was out of it and didn't know what was going on. But being the dog that she is, although I completely understand needing to monitor that the levels don't go to a dangerous place, there's also that balance of keeping your dog under the least stress possible. And I really feel like it's just it's a hard thing to weigh sometimes. I mean, if your dog is in critical condition, then basically you have to make the choice. It's a toughie sometimes. I just feel like the right decision for Asha is to be at home. And although I know that her calcium is still not quite right, I'm hoping that with the supplements and with time, it will get back to the normal range. We do another recheck in this coming Thursday, so I'll make another trip to Langford, which is an 1.5-hour drive, so I can't just go there easily back and forth. So I have one more calcium check, and I'll kind of see if it's going the right direction. But she's very alert, and she's bright, and she's I'm just trying to let her rest because she's kind of acting like her normal self for the most part. I'm glad she had the surgery. I think it gives her so much of a better chance now. I mean, really, without the surgery, it was kind of a death sentence. And now that she's had the surgery, like, that's the hard part. And I realized that the lowering of the calcium in the blood can be a really big deal. But hers wasn't dipping down too much. And so I think just being at home and being comfortable is pretty important for her healing as well. So Asha will be going back to the clinic for the calcium recheck next Thursday. And then she'll be going the next Thursday after that to get her sutures removed, and as well, obviously, another calcium recheck. So I'm crossing all fingers that things will go well and that the calcium will be getting close to normal. I have to consider the fact that she actually did have 2 parathyroid glands removed, and so she's got 2 that are trying to wake up and do their job, and with some animals maybe that just takes a little bit longer. She's just, her behavior is pretty much her normal self, maybe a little quieter, and I have to be careful not to let her run around too much. I'm really glad I went through with the surgery. I was really happy with the professionalism of the clinic despite some of our miscommunications. I think the lesson for me is to make sure that if you're out of town, that you absolutely make sure that you have access to all your phone numbers, whether they're at home or in the clinic, and maybe just delete your home phone number from their list while you're there. It's just, those types of things can happen no matter what the situation. But I was very happy with the surgery. I was very happy with the care. I was very happy with the good communication about the budget, because that, of course, is also a factor that we can't deny. The health and well-being of our pets is extremely important, as is our health and well-being and our ability to manage whatever our pet's going through. I think, again, it's just really important to have clear communication with the professionals that we're dealing with. And I think if you're honest about budgetary restrictions or concerns, they're sympathetic. They understand. They have budgets too. If there is a problem, be a squeaky wheel. Like, I couldn't get through to the people I needed to talk to find out what was going on, so I kept calling, and I know I was probably a pain in the butt, but I did eventually get my answers. The other thing is, I think it's really important to go over your medication list at the end, because when I got home, I realized that it said calcium carbonate, and I didn't know what that was, and I didn't have it with me. And so when I went to the pharmacist, I didn't apparently get the right stuff. I mean, I don't think it was like a terrible thing, but it would have been nice to get exactly what I needed for her right away. So although we went through the list, like, check and make sure you have all those medications before you leave the clinic. That would be my tip for leaving the clinic, and making sure that you've got all the information. And any questions about what you need to do or how do you need to administer the medication. In Asha's case, she needs a compress against her neck just to help cleaning the sutures. There's a very detailed explanation of everything in the literature they sent me home with, which is really great. And I just think it's really important to be clear and ask the questions if you have them, including budget, including care, including medication. Just keep talking, keep asking. They do understand. We care about our pets. They care about our pets. And the best way that we can help our pets is to work together towards their healing. I really appreciated also that the vet clinic was fine with me coming and checking on Asha. They have a little visitation room, and you can take them out for a walk. Like in my case, I took her out for a little walk around the back, and it was just good that I didn't have to absolutely leave her there without any contact at all. And I was able to just walk her around the clinic and bring her up to the car and show her the other dogs. And that was really important. I think, our animals don't know what's going on when they're there. And there are times where they're just completely out of it and it really doesn't matter. But there are other times where they just don't know what's going on, and your being there is very reassuring to them. So I really appreciated the clinic having that outlook that, yes, you're welcome to come, you're welcome to visit her, you're welcome to take her on a little walk. And I think it really made all the difference to her stay there, even though it was a bit scary. At least she wasn't completely abandoned, and she did feel like I was showing up every once in a while. I always kind of worry that sometimes they're going to lose hope, and that's going to affect their stress level. She's, like I said, a very nervous dog, so maybe not typical of most pets. But I just felt really good knowing that she knew I was there and I hadn't disappeared on her and I was coming back. So basically the hard part now is just to wait for the next calcium result to see how she's doing, and just allow her to heal and give her the time to relax and just let her rest and let her body do its job. I'm pretty optimistic that the surgery did go well, just because she's bright and she's happy. She's talking to me a little bit in the mornings, giving me a few grumbles. I'm not sure if that's just a bit of discomfort or if that's telling me off for having left her in that clinic for a couple of days. I don't really know, but I'm glad I went through with the surgery, and I feel like it did give her a chance for a longer life. And the prospect of a good outcome seems very likely. So I will update again in probably a couple of weeks' time after she's had a couple of her calcium results to know whether calcium's gone up to the normal level. And then even once it's gone to the normal level, there will be a period of her taking supplementation, and then hopefully at some point she will no longer need to take that. With each dog, I think it's different. I mean, I've heard it can take up to a couple of months. So I will update you about her state of wellness, and hopefully all will be good. It's just a matter of letting her heal and letting those parathyroid glands that were not working so hard, letting them kick in and do their job. I think that's going to happen soon. I think it's probably started to happen. It's just being patient and realizing the body sometimes takes some time to get to where you want it to go. If you've had any experience with parathyroid surgery, I would love to hear your experience, or even if you've had an experience with a large surgery and dealing with the stress of a budget. I'd love to know if you had any ideas on how to do the best for your pet given a specific budget. I realize there's things like pet insurance. Some people put an amount per month into a fund so that they can cover all these expenses. And basically we know that having a pet it costs, and there are going to be surgeries. There are going to sometimes be medical conditions that come up, and we can't always predict them. Sometimes the timing of it isn't great, like in my case with 2 at the same time, but it does happen, and we have to know that with our pets, and we have to be prepared to make those decisions about what we are going to do when it does happen. And it would be great to hear your opinions on how you prepare for that and what you do in your personal situation in case of a pet needing a major surgery or a costly medical expense that was unpredicted. We often don't think of these things until they happen, and it is good to be pondering it ahead of time and making plans for it so that we can do the best for our pets. When I do have that 3rd video, I will put a link right here. And if you didn't see the first video, I will put a link to it at the end of this video. We do love our pets, and I really wish you the best of luck in making all of your health decisions for your pets. Take care, and I hope to see you next time.